You may be seated. On behalf of the family, I want to thank you for coming this morning and spending some time with them and paying your respects as we remember Scott today. Scott is preceded in death by grandparents, George and Ramona Thole, Jacob and Viola Fast, his aunts Mavis Fast and Angie Thole, his cousin Kurt Phelps, and numerous great aunts and uncles. Scott is survived by his loving wife, Mia Thole, his children Nick, and Nick's wife Haley Thole, his daughter Cecilia, Kaya, Poppy, and Maya's two sons who Scott loved as his own, Kason and Kyler Castillo. His parents, George and Elaine Thole, his brother Dean and his wife Lori Thole, his niece Sarah Trout. Scott is also survived by Jill Wayenberg, the mother of Nick and Cecilia, and his lifelong friend Dave Wyke, and many aunts, uncles, and cousins. Scott graduated in 1989 from Buffalo High School and subsequently earned his degree in culinary arts from Hennepin Technical College. He delighted people with his cooking for 20 years before transitioning into a new career as a financial advisor, while working as a lead at the Particle Control in Albertville. Scott enjoyed hunting, fishing, camping, and traveling with his family. Scott also enjoyed drag racing at Brainerd International Raceway, working on cars and gardening in his large garden. Scott was a loving husband and father and was a hard worker who always got the job done. Scott was always the first person to crack a joke and loved to make people laugh. We're going to have a short song now. So I apologize for skipping order a little bit, but and reading the obituary before the song, but now we'll have some family reflections from Cecilia.
Thank you all for coming today to celebrate my dad. We all met and loved different versions of him, and today I'm going to share mine. If I can get it out. I didn't find out about my dad until Saturday morning. That night was the hardest for me. I felt so much like a little kid again who just needed their daddy. When I was little and couldn't sleep, Dad would come across the hall and pet my hair until I fell back asleep. And it sounds weird, but I did that to myself Saturday night. Brains are funny sometimes. Every time I hear the song Yeah by Usher, which is now my favorite, I remember a very specific memory. Riding in the back of Dad's white Mustang, Dad driving, Nick and me in the back seat, me on the left, Nick on the right, the smell of Bounce dryer sheets keeps the mice out. The warm blue leather seats, windows open, pulling up to Brockton Lane to turn left with that song playing. The way Dad cared for and loved that Mustang definitely influenced me to want a classic car of my own, a 1975 turquoise Chevy Bel Air. I thought he'd be here to ride in it with me, but I know he'll be in the passenger seat when that time comes. Speaking of cars, all I know about them, I learned from Nick and Dad. I like to think that Dad was our first introduction to DIY projects. If there was something he could do himself and not pay someone else to do it, he would. Build a 2-story garage with a little help and some elbow grease, and that thing is still standing. This part's hard. I know how much Nick looks up to him. How much Nick learned from him. From hunting and fishing to home care and car maintenance. Being the little sister, I look up to my brother so much. I see so much of Dad in him. And I hope what I didn't get the chance to learn, thank God I haven't had an exploded engine, I can learn from Nick. For example, shooting. I finally got to go to the gun range with Dad when I was in college. It was one of our very first one-on-one outings in a long time, and it was so much fun. I just wish I could have gone more than once with him. Learn more about safety and aiming, anything and everything. Hopefully I can learn what I need to from my brother. And one of my last Christmas presents from my dad was a gift card to the local gun range, which I still have not used. Growing up, I'd watch Dad reload shotgun shells with that funny-looking thing, the one with the lever and the little beads and balls in the container. I loved playing with that thing. Little did I know what it was actually for. I'd watch him outside, standing at the different painted lines in the grass and driveway, which I am now realizing were different yard lines and shooting for his bow practice. I loved hearing all the hunting stories and seeing the pictures, and I know he's up there with Inca right now hunting. And someday in the very, very far future, Nick and I can join him, and you guys can teach me the ways. And as I come to the end of my little speech here, I want to leave you all with a little bit of wisdom that came from one of my best friends, Anna. If you want to get close to someone in your life, now's the time to do it and put in the effort. Our relationship had gone through a big rough patch when I was a teenager, and I finally got to a point where I wanted a relationship again. We put in a lot of effort, and it's in a much better spot, and I don't have any regrets on where we stand with each other. If I hadn't, I'd have so much guilt and so many unanswered questions that I wouldn't be able to get resolved. I'm gonna miss you, Dad. But I know you're gonna be with us all, dropping in every once in a while and cracking jokes at our expense. And you better go fishing with Nick, hunting with your buddies, camping with me, and holding your future grandchildren. And when I get that Bel Air, you better be in that passenger seat.
My name is Brad. I'm a friend of Scott's, and just want to thank everyone for the support they've given me and the Thole family during this difficult time. I'm just going to read a short passage from extract from Winnie the Pooh. If ever there is a tomorrow when we're not together, there's something you must always remember. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. But the most important thing is, even if we are apart, I'll always be with you. Thank you.
Knew it was going to be hard. I wasn't sure how hard. First of all, thanks to everyone for coming today and joining us to remember and celebrate the life of my brother, Scott Thole. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Scott's older brother, Dean Thole. I haven't spoken in front of a crowd in about 30 years, and I wasn't expecting this to be my return to it. So if I falter a bit, bear with me and we'll get through this. Scott was born in Robbinsdale, Minnesota on December 11th, 1970, and was raised in Buffalo, Minnesota. He graduated from Buffalo High School in 1989 and then completed the culinary arts program at North Hennepin Technical College and subsequently reached the level of executive chef. He married his longtime girlfriend, Jill Weinberg, in 1994. They were married for nearly 20 years and had 2 children, Nick and Cecilia. As we all know, the one constant in life is that it is constantly changing. And that brings us to Scott's next chapter. Scott met and later married his wife, Mia DeLee, in 2019. They had 2 girls together, Kaya and Poppy, and Mia had 2 sons from her previous marriage, Kason and Kyler, who Scott loved like his own. Sadly, Scott was taken much too soon from us on August 23rd, 2024, and that's why we're all here today. I don't want to dwell on the loss of Scott, but rather share some fond memories, funny stories, and paint a picture of the type of person he was. Some of you may know most of these stories. Some of you and others may know none of them, but hopefully they bring all of you a bit of joy and a smile to your face. One of the first memories I have of Scott was when he was about 1 year old. I had broken my leg and was fitted with a plaster cast that left my toes out. Well, that big toe must have looked like a teething toy or a little snack, because Scott crawled over and gave it a good bite. It hurt like the dickens. Of course, it got infected, but it healed quickly, and it was hard to be mad at him as he was such a cute little guy. Well, when the rabies test came back negative, it was official. We were keeping him. We grew up in a very family-oriented neighborhood, and our neighbors were like our own mini family, and we did so many things together. Whether it was Scott, Dave Weike, and I BB gun shooting in Varner's Woods, practicing archery in the backyard, or a highly competitive game of Nerf football, using the garden as the sideline for those perfect tiptoe catches. There was always something going on. We had some intense games of hide and seek, constantly looking for the most outrageous hiding spots. I thought I'd found the best ever, but got stuck in the upright washing machine and had to be oiled down to get out with the help of Mom and Mrs. Euchre. A few weeks later, Scott, not to be outdone, tried to one-up me and hung by his arms, his fingertips in the laundry chute. forgetting that you can't pull yourself up when your arms can't bend. I'll never forget one of the first times Mom and Dad left us home alone while they went out. I must have had a knack for getting under Scott's skin. Actually, I think it's a trait of big brothers, as I see the same behavior in my grandsons, Kason and Rhett, because they weren't gone 15 minutes and Scott had punched a hole in the wall. We looked at each other in shock, both started crying because we knew how much trouble we were in, apologized over and over to each other, promised that we'd never fight again, and then we fixed the problem. How? Once we realized we couldn't fix it with Scotch tape and newspaper, we did what any kids would do in that situation. Just moved a chair in front of it, figuring they wouldn't notice. The chair is actually in one of those pictures out on the board, too. Well, I think everyone here can guess how that turned out. Mom and Dad came home, and the first question was, why is the furniture rearranged? Of course, we quickly confessed and were grounded for a few weeks. I still can't believe Scott thought that chair would buy us a week's time before they'd see it. We did a lot of fishing and camping as a family, which I'm sure fueled Scott's love of those things, along with hunting. Mom and Dad loved to fish, so they bought a boat and we spent a lot of time in it together. I remember during the spring crappie spawn, we'd boat out, catch our limit of 60 in about half an hour using little yellow jig lures, while everybody else was fumbling around with bobbers and minnows. We'd catch our limit. We were pulling in fish 4 times faster than anybody, and we'd be done in about a half an hour while they're still trying to fill up buckets. Normally you hear the whisk. On another fishing outing, I casted out my lure. Normally you hear the whisk of your line going out, but not this time. I heard a screech. I managed to hook Scott's cheek. He was so embarrassed, he held his hand up to it the whole way until we got to the doctor to have it removed. And, well, it was a long wait, but I finally got a little revenge for that big toe. Dave and Scott hunted and fished together constantly. I wasn't a hunter, but I can verify that they were pretty good at it by the amount of dead animals I saw them bring back. I can't really share any good hunting stories. They'd be too redacted to be funny. As everyone knows, what happens on a hunting trip stays in the woods. To this day, Dave still holds a guys' fishing week that Scott rarely missed with all of their fishing buddies, a time to catch up with old friends and make new memories together. I know he'll be missed there. When we went camping as a family, Scott's main job was tending the fire from a young age. He watched it like a hawk and made sure we had enough coals to make it through the night, and he always succeeded. He wasn't a firebug, but he respected it and knew how to use it. My dad recalled a winter father-son scout campout that he went to with Scott. They had pulled up and Dad started hauling their gear into the shelter. He got done and looked around for Scott and found him popping corn on a fire he had built out on the frozen parking lot 10 minutes after arriving. Each group prepared their own food over a wood fire. Scott's group had great, well-planned meals, while the others had badly cooked, burnt pizza and half raw meat cooked over their fires. Obviously, Scott's gift of cooking was already shining through. Scott loved working on cars and fixing things. I watched from afar as he restored a '66 Mustang. He was meticulous on the details, ordering original parts, and even dyeing the sun visors to match the interior. It took several years to complete and was his pride and joy. I remember seeing him pull up in it for the first time and seeing the excitement on his face, and was inspired to try my hand at a restoration. Of course, I didn't have the space or tools to do this, so after a small amount of begging, I promptly had a '65 Volkswagen microbus towed to his house with the intent of restoring it. And there it sat. I didn't have the drive to get started, and it languished for about 7 years in the driveway. If I'd only asked him, I'm sure he'd have helped, but we just had it towed away after getting some nice photos with Nick and Cecilia in it. Nick was always interested in what Scott was doing. It was evident while looking at pictures for the boards here today. I saw some of Nick watching his dad work on his truck, and another watching him holding a rifle. Jill once told me a story about Scott and Dave when they were working on a car. They had laid the parts out so carefully so it would be easy to reassemble. Nick was just sitting there watching their every move. He was a baby still at this point. And when it came time to put it back together, they were missing a bolt. They looked all over for it, but it was nowhere to be found. Later, when Nick had his diaper changed, the bolt showed up. You can guess where. Neatly tucked into Nick's diaper. Cecilia remembered her dad taking her to work and getting to go through the kitchen to see his office. Scott would introduce her to everyone working there, and she got to see him jump in and cook a little get behind the scenes, the curtain at a restaurant, so to speak. But the best thing was how it made her feel, like she was a VIP and Scott was the rock star. That's an amazing statement of admiration for her father. Scott loved music, listening to it, playing it, singing it. This was woven into the fabric of our lives in so many ways. We had a nice stereo at home and played a lot of music on it. My earliest memory of music, and I'm guessing Scott's also, because he just asked my parents on the 4th of July this year if they still had the album, was listening to the Guess Who's classic American Woman. As toddlers, we both used to sit in front of a speaker and jam to that song. Alas, Mom and Dad no longer had it. We probably wore the record out. Every Thole Christmas Eve was filled with music, and everyone participated. Uncle Mike played his guitar by the fireplace. All of the grandkids gathered around him to listen and sing, while our aunts and uncles put on a show with their voices. And I think it inspired Scott, because he actually dabbled with playing the guitar and was pretty good at that. But he also kept on singing. If I sing, children run and birds fall from the sky. But Scott got the gift of a good voice. He helped form a men's singing group in high school that sang at numerous events, and even joined the Minnetonka Clippers barbershop chorus while he was in high school to sing alongside Dad, even performing in their large yearly concert at Orchestra Hall, which I know made my parents proud. For years, Scott loved going to Brainerd International Raceway to watch the National Hot Rod Association Nationals drag racing. He had a favorite driver, Antron Brown, who he'd meet every year, take pictures with, and sport his gear. Scott and Mia made this a family tradition, bringing some or all of the kids up. They'd camp in the zoo, which is the on-site campground there. They made many friends who they knew just from going and camping there, and they'd see every year. Just like Dave's fishing week, this was a time for friends to get together, catch up, and make new memories. It was a happy place for them, and I know Mia has a ton of stories from there. But just like hunting stories, what happens at BIR stays at BIR. Just a fun little fact about Scott's love of racing, it did not include NASCAR. He was all in on NHRA and would take offense to being called a NASCAR fan. Last story here, I promise. Just like our parents took us on more camping trips and camping vacations than I can remember, Scott and Mia did the same with their kids. Every summer they'd take a big camping vacation, and I know they had a lot of fun. On their last trip a few weeks back, Scott stressed to everyone that he had just sharpened the axe, so be careful with it. And then he promptly put it into his leg and had to go to Duluth for stitches. I guess he really wanted to prove it was sharp or just wanted another scar. I know that everything Scott did with their kids built a deep admiration and respect for him. Be it leading the boys in scouts or cheering all of them on in sports, he was always there for them, and it showed in their love for him. I know they will miss their dad tremendously. 1 second. So over the last few weeks, I've had a lot of time to reflect on Scott's life and ponder on how something like this can happen to such a good husband, son, father, brother, and friend. And after that, I still don't have a definitive answer. I believe that God has a plan, and someday we'll all see it to fruition. But not everyone is religious, so that doesn't bring them peace. So for everyone, my only answer is that sometimes bad things happen to good people, which I know doesn't bring a lot of comfort either. Everyone copes with loss differently, and I know each of us will find a path through this in our own unique way. I do know one thing for certain, though. Scott would not want us to be overcome by his loss and let grief rule our lives. He would want us to get out there, live our lives doing the things that make us happy, and think about him then. So the next time you're enjoying a nice dinner out or see a classic car go by, go hunting and fishing with your friends, or just have a wonderful day with your family, think of Scott then, and hopefully let a smile cross your face, and remember the good times you had together. Rest in peace, brother. You will never be forgotten. I'd like to leave you with a poem I found that really touched me. I hope you like it too. It's called He Is Gone, Remember Me by David Harkins. You can shed tears that he is gone, or you can smile because he lived. You can close your eyes and pray that he will come back, or you can open your eyes and see all that he has left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see him, or you can be full of the love that you shared. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday, or you can be happy tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember him and only that he is gone, or you can cherish his memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back, or you can do what he would want, smile, open your eyes, love, and go on. Thank you.
Celia, thank you for sharing memories of your dad. Did a wonderful job, and Dean, of your brother. On behalf of the family, they're welcoming you to join them for lunch. Right now, it'll be down the hall in the great room. And so I'll walk out with the family, and then you could dismiss yourselves in an orderly fashion. So we want to let them get down there and start eating. And so, don't rush the doors. Give us a chance to exit. But thank you for coming. And if you didn't get a chance to pay your respects or share your condolences with the family, you could do so at lunch. I encourage you to share a memory of Scott or just some words of encouragement with the family. So thank you for coming.